So our vision was to put girls into a rocket and then just accelerate their opportunities. I want to be in the back, helping the ones that don't move forward. That we didn't have that many investors, so we were able to rechange the whole concept, the whole idea. And that's where when we realized you need to start with a problem. It's tough. I'm a mother of two little kids, 6 and 4. And yeah, I think that you have to have passion and with everything you do. You have to really believe in what you're doing, because it's hard, especially with when you have kids. You need to be doing something that would make you feel good leaving them.
Welcome to Seedstars podcast. Seedstars is an organization that aims to have an impact in emerging markets by supporting the local entrepreneurs, investing in their ventures, but also sharing their story globally, because we really believe they are the true heroes. We'll be listening to them and other thought leaders and disruptors that are really shaping the future of tomorrow, and we hope that together we can build a sustainable impact. Before we start, I would like to thank our partners at Trek from the Jacobs Foundation. Hi everyone, welcome to Seedstars podcast for our first ever episode. I've invited Jessica from Guatemala City, Venezuelan entrepreneur that's going to tell us all about her startup. I will not introduce you, Jessica. Thank you for joining us. But instead, I want to start with this first question. Why did you call your startup the Valentina program?
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here having this conversation with you. So Valentina came because we got inspired by Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman that arrived to space. When we started this adventure and this journey, we wanted to improve the quality of life of women. We want to provide them more opportunities and accelerate their progress. Valentina started as a coding bootcamp for girls. So our vision was to put girls into a rocket and then just accelerate their opportunities. So it's okay, who was the first woman that did this, who arrived to space? And we learned about Valentina Tereshkova and her history and how she was this first woman in this industry totally dominated by men. She also had vertigo, but that was her dream, so she accomplished it. So she represented a lot of what we wanted and what we wanted to accomplish. So we thought Valentina was the perfect name, and we could honor her and inspired us every time we read. So that's what we called our adventure Programa Valentina.
Very cool. And maybe could you tell us a bit of your background on how you went? So there's a whole story on how you pivoted from the coding bootcamp into now what you're focusing on, which is unemployment. But maybe beforehand, how did you come about this challenge? What was your drive to start this business?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned, I grew up in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. And always in Venezuela, I remember going to these manifestations since I was a girl. It was because we were manifesting against violence, or there wasn't enough food. We're always manifesting against something. And one time, I remember this really vividly. I was with my parents in a manifestation, walking again, complaining or something, or arguing with the government against something we were not happy about. And we were at a bridge, and you looked like the manifestation walking and going by, and I don't know, I had this kind of an epiphany. So I remember, this is really interesting.
How old were you for this epiphany?
I probably 14, 15 kind of.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and I thought, this is really interesting, because you have the people on the front, right, the one that leading, telling everywhere where to go, and you have the people in the middle who have no clue what we're doing there, or just following, or just there because everybody else was there. The people on the sides, or sometimes they go in the march, then they go out, take a break, go back in. There were always people in the back helping move the ones that were left behind, that couldn't walk. And I don't know, for some reason I realized that's a position I want to have in my life. I want to be in the back, helping the ones that don't move forward. I guess I was born in a privileged position. We always had everything we needed. Our parents were able to provide for us. And I never understood why us. there's things that we cannot control. Like we don't have a saying or a choice, or like your background or your gender or your geography. And all those things were determining our outcome in life. And
Absolutely.
and it didn't make sense like for me. I even thought like it was not fair. So at that moment I realized this is where I want to be and what I want to do. And I want to be able to provide opportunities for the people that have not been that privileged, the people that have fallen through the cracks, and so I can be able to help them crawl back up and get back in the march and continue what everyone's supposed to. So that's why I decided, and I've been doing this work ever since.
And it's interesting that you say you in a march you wanted to be at the back, because in many ways we always think of the founder and CEO to be the leader of a march, and it's interesting how you position yourself, because that's where the challenges and the people you really want to support. And maybe that's how leadership should be also, getting your hands dirty within the crowd and understanding everyone's, as you mentioned, cracks.
Definitely. I think it's important, like everyone of the march. You need everyone. You need the people on the front. You need the people that just following, the people on the sides that go take breaks. Yeah. But I wanted to be there. I thought like that's where my place, I think where it is. And that's where I want to do. And I think it's important. And it's definitely hard as a leader, or like wanting to be in the back, but also needing to be
be at the forefront. Yeah,
definitely.
And with your experience growing up in Venezuela, and I imagine how much this builds your identity from a little girl to manifest on a regular basis, even to have that knowledge and critical thinking. I think at your age, I had no clue about politics and what were also the cracks and the misinformation that we could have as a citizen. How has that built you as a leader, in the sense, maybe could you say that Venezuelan in many ways are great candidates to build entrepreneurial journeys because of their history? Do you feel that?
Definitely. I think that builds like a resilience in
Yeah.
people. I think Venezuelans and now in a sense like Nicaraguans are going through the same thing. We're really resilient, and it's really interesting the crisis we're having right now. And the friends that I have in Venezuela, they said it's actually now it's interesting that the whole world is exactly where we are, where we have been. This is like for most of the world, this is new. This has never happened. For Venezuelans, sadly, this has been a reality for a long period of time. So that really helps build your character. And for me, what has been more important is help you not take anything for granted. Anything.
Yeah.
And things could always be worse. And it could always definitely be worse when you think, okay, this is it, rock bottom. You can keep going down. So it makes you, okay, this is it. We need to start going up now. And I think, but most importantly, I would say the resilience it creates in people in Venezuela who adapt to anything.
So what I think is so cool is that probably since you were born, you understand more than anyone the concept of survival of the fittest. Which is something that now everyone is saying with the pandemic, which is a pandemic crisis happening globally. And I imagine you're having good laughs on seeing on what people are concerned, which is absolutely not vital compared to what you have imagined and lived through growing up. Maybe going back a bit more specifically to your business model, can you go through the process of when you realized you had to pivot, and what that entailed in terms of the culture of your company? And even, I don't know if you already had investors, but how did you operate that pivot?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Valentina started as a boot camp to teach girls how to code. We thought, well, it was really popular when we started. Everybody was teaching people how to code. That was the future. And there was no one focusing on indigenous population. So we thought, okay, this is perfect. We could do it. We could like accelerate the progress, give them jobs. So we started, it was actually a small investment when we started the program. And then after, like after the first 3 weeks, 80% of our candidates were already dropped out. And it's like, we realized, okay, what's going on? This is a problem. Why are you dropping out? It's perfect. We had the idea, the concept, we had the whole story. But when we started talking with them, there's like, okay, we really like your concept and your idea and the vision, but your program takes 10 months and we don't have 10 months. Like we need to work to find a job right now.
So they're saying 10 months is not possible because we need to bring back money now. Like it's really livelihood matter.
That's it. Like we need now. We cannot afford it. And our vision was that, okay, we want to give them jobs, but then we didn't take into account the reality that was happening right now. So then we went to the companies again and mentioned this, like, why don't you hire them now? We will create a program with you so like they can continue studying and we can build it. And then again, we love your concept, we love your story, this is great, but we don't need that now, nor in 10 months. We need them 5 years from now. They have graduated and they have an actual experience for what you think they should apply for. Because we had like these coding jobs where it was like 4 times the minimum wage. And then we realized not even if we accomplished what we thought we could accomplish, we would have been successful. And then, but the companies told us something really interesting. There were like a few of them that said, they're like, but what we do need right now, it's basic tech skills, because we're using these very qualified programmers to do really basic tech skills, because the new hires we are hiring do not have the skills. And then
sorry, just to understand, there was a talent gap in very basic tech skills, whereas they had much more qualified engineers doing these basic skills, so they were paying too much, basically for such a return. But were these engineers local at least, or were they outsourcing that?
No, they were local. They were local.
They were local.
Local engineers, the engineers were frustrated. They studied 4 years, they had all this experience, and they were doing basic tech stuff because there was no one like that had qualified to do it. And then we realized this basic tech skill is something we could accomplish in a shorter period of time, understanding how time and how critical it is for our candidates to bring money to their households. So that's where we realized we need to completely change it. As I said, we didn't have that many investors, so we were able to rechange the whole concept, the whole idea. And that's where when we realized you need to start with a problem, especially in impact investing. If you start with a solution, then you're just going to decide, okay, or if you start with an idea, then you would want to make that idea work. But if we would have started with the problem on the first place, like what's the problem, we would have come up with this earlier. But so it's really important.
Sorry to stop you, but it's so interesting that you say that specifically for impact investing. And I do believe there's still so much, there's still little study and benchmarks and cases to understand what's the appropriate framework to thrive a profitable business, which has such a social purpose. And why do you think the problem is so fundamental in impact investing versus launching any other business?
I think definitely that's a good question, because if not, you're going to end up solving something that maybe wasn't needed to be solved. And for us, what has been most important is when we start going to companies, when we started just to sell an idea, it's harder for them to adopt it. But when you said, okay, you have this problem, this is a solution, then it's easier for them. Oh, that's right. We do have this problem. Let's solve it together. And you're bringing us a solution to this. So then the traction companies get are bigger. And the end result, I think that would be the main thing. it's bigger, because if not, it's just like an idea. Maybe you're not going to solve a problem. You're just going to push your idea because you think it works. And especially if it doesn't come, like, because the people who created this are outside of the problem, and if it's
Absolutely.
designed on an air conditioned office, and if you're trying to solve something and you cannot totally relate, you might come up with something that would not solve the problem. So I think with impact investing, it's really, really critical that you understand the problem first, and then from the problem, come up with a solution.
Okay, so let's go back to where you stand. You've pivoted. You've realized that you're looking. You proposed a solution, not a problem, not answering a problem. Now you're realizing that companies need these kind of low skill set of technical employees that they would actually take on quite quickly. How did you change your program? Did it change a lot to what you were previously doing? How fast were you able to adapt to these needs?
So we changed it. It was like 180 degrees change completely. So from a coding 10 months program with all girls, we changed it into a basic tech skills, soft tech skill work environment simulator for vulnerable populations. So then we realized, okay, we need to make this fast because our population doesn't have much time. We need to make it fast. It has to be short. So we realized, okay, why don't we focus on the abilities they already have? These are the famous soft skills, and which is something the companies were also asking for. We want someone that would be proactive, that would know how to work. Everything else we could teach them. So if you give them basic tech skills and these are really proactive candidates, then we'll bring them on, and then we can teach them and help them grow here.
And so at Seedstars, we also have investments in education companies, and even in our recruitment process for our own talents. What's the key to know the proactiveness of a potential talent? What's your kind of secret sauce?
So I think our secret sauce is you have to put a candidate in a position where they need to be proactive. You can make all kind of tests, psychometric tests and evaluation, but unless you're in that position, and again, I have this story that helped us realize that. This was actually not in Venezuela, but it was in Guatemala. We got mocked. I don't know how to say it in English, but I was with my boyfriend, who's now my husband at the time, at the car. We needed an address. I took out my laptop, and then two guys at a motorcycle put next to us, and one brought a gun and started knocking at the door. And it's like, I want the computer now. Growing up, Venezuela or these countries, okay, somebody puts a gun at you and asks you to give anything, you give it. No, your life is more valuable. But then I was there at that time, and I had a gun on my head, literally, and the guy was, give me a computer. And the only thing I could think of, I didn't back up my pictures. There's no way I'm going to lose this. I was trying to think of all the possibilities. Okay, the light was red. There's massive traffic. My husband was there, like, screaming at me, give it to him. Like, there's no way I'm going to give the computer. Took the computer out, throw them to the guy. They left. Until this moment, I know I haven't been able to forgive him, but for doing that. But the guy's like, if you don't give me a computer, I'm going to shoot you in the head. And yeah, that's where you realize you can think and you can really prepare how you're going to react. But unless you're in that situation, you're never going to know. So what we created is we just simulated the work environment. It's like outsourcing an internship. So we put the candidates in different positions. They're going to be exposed when they get a job. And then we see how they react. We change
Excellent.
stage, we give them hard feedback, we change leaders. And depending on how they react, and through different and more than 1,000 data points, we can measure. And then you have like a better idea of if they're going to be proactive or not when they're in a situation. So that's when we change our oil concept. And I would say that's part of our secret sauce. And now we're introducing virtual reality to kind of the same thing, to put people in different situations that are more immersive than a regular test, and see how they would respond with the idea or the hypothesis that how they respond there, it would be similar how they would respond in a real life situation.
Do you know a bit kind of your competitor landscape, in the sense that for me this is super innovative of how you approach HR, and I mean, just looking at how HR in general with many companies is still very standardized, as you mentioned, with these tests, and you go through these process, etc. And you're so right to say that it's only in living the experience and seeing the people in the actual moment that you can detect, at least, is their values align with the company they want to work with, and potentially a certain set of their skills. Are you that novel? What's on the market?
Definitely in our region, we're the only one
for sure
attacking HR with both ends. So what we realize, HR has two ends. Like, you have the candidates and you have the companies, and we're working with both ends of the equation. But there's a few, I think McKinsey have done, they have it more on a nonprofit level. It's an organization called Generation. We have something very similar, but they focuses more as an NGO. So it's a nonprofit. And there are a few different, but more on the bootcamp side, that have a business model similar to us, like Laboratoria and Code are two other organizations. But I think with our focus, we're the only one. And yeah,
and you can scale with the data points that you're able to collect on top. So what are your numbers right now? Where do you stand with Valentina program?
Yeah, so we have certified 1,500 candidates so far. This is only in Guatemala. We have opened 8 different the venues of Valentina around the country. We're not only in the capital. And we have helped find jobs almost 500 of our candidates. We have helped them get jobs so far. And then our vision now is to expand to other programs, other countries. Sorry, and grow.
And here's the big question everyone has with companies trying to do profit and purpose at the same time. What's your revenue model, and how do you balance out between the KPIs that are more purpose driven versus your financial KPIs, because you need to build sustainability, and ultimately, if you want your impact to be that fundamental, you would want scale. So how does it operate?
Sure. So our revenue model is actually very interesting. I think it's really unique also in a lot of ways, because we wanted to be sustainable. I come from the nonprofit sector, and I actually jumped to the impact sector because I was tired of fundraising. I wanted to be focused on the impact. I wanted to create something the more impact you create, the more revenue. That for me sounded like, okay, this is amazing. This is like heaven, being able to create that. And so we decided, okay, but we need to be sustainable. So you need to charge something for the service you're providing, but we also want to be inclusive. So if you charge at the beginning as many training or as many educational institutions do, then you limit the access to the population that really need it, especially understanding that we're working with unemployed participants or youth. So we decided, okay, what happened if we aligned everyone's interests? Like, what would the candidates want? They want to be trained as fast as possible and be placed in the best paying possible job. So why don't we create a model that would have those same incentives? So we create this paying forward model where candidates go through the program and they only paid us once our value proposition has been fulfilled, that they find a job and they now have an income. So in that way, we were able, to have the sustainability part, but also be inclusive and anyone could participate. And then we also charge the companies as a headhunter, and as a regular headhunter does, we could charge a little bit less to be more competitive. So our model is like a pay forward, zero risk. and all the participants can attend. And then once they get a job, then they pay forward the equivalent of one salary divided in payments.
Okay, so you really do need volume and kind of a certain rhythm so that in terms of cash flow and growth, you're able to also do the investments to scale. Okay. And maybe what's your... No, you know what? Because you shared your story of being at gunpoint and your husband ready and you ready to leave him because you had to leave your computer.
My
I think
photograph.
so many entrepreneurs that are connecting with us or want to be entrepreneurs that want to jump into an entrepreneurial adventure and one that is more impact and emerging market driven. They always have this kind of big doubt and like, how do you balance this with your family? How do you make this work? And it's still such a long journey ahead for you. Kind of what are your takeaways so far?
It's tough. I'm a mother of two little kids, 6 and 4. And yeah, I think that you have to have passion and with everything you do. You have to like really believe
Sure.
in what you're doing, because it's hard, especially with your when you have kids. You need to be doing something that would make you feel good leaving them in a way, or will make you feel satisfied. I don't know if I would be the right person to say I have balance. I don't know if I have. Valentina, it's women-led, women-owned company. So most of our like administrative stations, 70% of our employees are women. All the general managers were all women. And so I think that has also helped. Like we understand. There is this anecdote, I think it's really funny. If we were able to snapshot that moment, like for me, would say, this is what being a women entrepreneur means. If we could snapshot this moment, this is what I will explain. So there's 4 of us, and we were having this conversation. It was actually about a Seedstars growth program. We needed to have a meeting, and we had to. It was in like we were going to have it like presence, but then we had to make it in virtually, like most of the meeting now. And at that moment, so one of us, like there are 4 of us. So one was at the hospital because her son was having a treatment. It was nothing critical, but she was in the waiting room. I was in the parking lot of my son's kindergarten because I had to drop him off, and then I didn't have time to go nowhere. So I was actually in the parking lot. The other one had her 3-year-old sick at home, so jumping around the conversation. And the other one was about to she gave birth, I think, like 4 weeks later after that. And like that moment is like, this is amazing. And we didn't even hesitate, complain, talk about it. And like, this is life. And life has to happen while you're growing a business. And yeah, we always joke about, well, first, men would have never been in that position on the first place. And they would probably cancel the meeting. But I think you just have to, life is not going to stop. You have to be able to manage and understand, and both would be happen at the same time.
So actually, this pandemic is a really interesting and insightful moment for humanity as a whole, because men and women are obliged in confinement to go on with work virtually. So they'll have to experience what life is with the family behind the scenes, actually. I hope we learn some good out of all of this. Interesting that you were saying that. So I think there is definitely, and probably especially in the impact space, the fact that you are representative of a women-led business, a women-founded business. It's so powerful, and we're still heavily underrepresented in any continent around the world. What do you think was the key, if we had to try and build scalable, low cost solutions to how we can build more diversity in companies? What do you think was the single most important factor for your business to have? And you mentioned 70% of your employees, and even at the level of senior management, being women. What do you think? Is it because you are a founder woman? What's that most important element?
Well, definitely, I think because we're like I'm a founder as a woman, or the name and we're targeted women has definitely attracted more women. But especially for the top management, the key factor has been flexibility.
Okay.
Most of our candidates are really really strong women that have worked in a like more complicated industry that had to leave that industry because they want to have more flexibility and have more time with their kids. And I think that has been our key factor, that we're flexible with schedules, with time, and that has what attracted especially our top management.
So flexibility is really just so I'm like really, it's clear also for the audience, it's really about being able to allow every team member to set up their own agenda, be at home like at office, be able to reschedule without being frowned upon, this kind of flexibility, or you have something else also that should be considered?
So again, that's definitely one. It would depend on the industries, but just to understand and see, okay, if you need to go to the hospital with your kid, that's okay. There's no problem. We're not counting the days or the 6 days you might have. So that's definitely one. And the other one that is really important that I didn't mention is definitely the impact. Again, as I said, you're going to leave your kids, and that's going to be really hard on you, and especially in how society judges you, but especially on you, so it has to be worth it. And being understanding that you're there doing something meaningful, it helps. So I think the flexibility and the impact has been our two key ingredients to attract more women and be 70% women representation.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think there are actually more and more studies proving that the impact space is scaling so quickly, also because there are more women that are now decision makers on the investment side and on the buildings, I mean, the entrepreneurial side. You mentioned quickly the Seedstars growth program. We actually also, when building it, thought it was so important that it stays virtual, not only because the business was at a scale and a point in its life where it wouldn't make sense to ask you to relocate or have such a level of investment in being somewhere else than in your own or targeted market, but also because we had a lot of women entrepreneurs that were feeling like they were being left out because the investment requested was just inappropriate and impossible with the family life that they needed, that they were still running and leading on. Has that been an easier decision for you to follow it? Has that helped the business, or is that not really a factor?
Totally. As I said, we were able to have the meeting because if it was virtually everybody doing and trying to fit it on the schedule. So I think transforming and make it a bit virtually, we would have been those ones that would have to deny participating. No,
exactly,
because we wouldn't have been able. Because it is really time consuming. But then if you're doing virtually, you can adapt it, you can understand it, and you can fix it into your schedule, and then eventually you will get a rhythm and it will start like following. But at the beginning, it might seem a little bit overwhelming, and because the fact it was virtual and then we were able to accommodate it at our own schedule, that really helped.
And just so indeed, because why you're part of the Seedstars growth program is that you won the Trek and HEG Fribourg education prize. And there's a lot of noise around the fact that these prizes and programs don't really build unicorns or high growth businesses, whatever you want to call them. Why is Valentina program still applying for such competitions or prizes? Why do you feel like, what has it brought to you in terms of sustaining a performing business? Because many could say that it pushes you away from the business, or it could set a level of mediocrity. Why join the program, and well, amazing that you won, but there was a whole process to get here. So it is a real investment.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's worth it. For us, has been great, and we've been able to apply because it keeps us. I think on the contrary, that makes you mediocre. I think it keeps you growing. It keeps you like
Awake.
updated, or what's going on, and it introduces you. I think the network it gives you, like the contact and the organization, the people and the mentors we have been able to work as a startup. You do not have time to start looking for like people and mentors. It's hard. You need to figure out and be like on the trenches and the day-to-day. So this programs helped us be exposed, help us take a pause, help us maybe think it at a higher level. So we are actually we applied to a lot because we've seen a lot of benefits. And at the end, like on a side note, if we could help inspire others and show it can be done, I think that's also important. It's hard. It's really, really tough. I think there's not, and especially being a woman, being an entrepreneur, being in tech, being human resources. Like the one thing harder than dealing with human resources is starting a business that focuses on human resources.
On top, exactly.
On top. And it's hard, and you need to see that it can be done, that it's possible, that there are other people, and you can connect and go through this journey. So I think they're really, really useful, and when we liked and we applied, especially for it keeps us updated and it connects with amazing.
Absolutely. Maybe so it's what we asked to kind of all our guest speakers is a couple of more standardized questions at the end, and one I wanted to start with was what's your North Star? Like, what's your impact target that you have 1, 2, 3, 5 years down the line? I don't know how you've projected the Valentina program, but what is it for you?
Yeah, we want to be able to impact at least like 1 million lives in Latin America. And if we could place at least half of those, 500,000 people in jobs, I think that would be incredible. Coming from the nonprofit sector, being in the social world all my life, giving someone a job, I think it's the most impactful thing you can do. It takes away the vulnerability. It gives people options. It gives people choices. It increases your self-esteem. So if we can do that to like 500,000 people, it's amazing. But I think that's what's really powerful about this impact program, because every person you place, you're making the world better just by placing one. And that gives you enough fuel to continue. And if we reach this really high goal, it would be amazing. But if not, we're now like the 500 people that we have placed in jobs. I know their lives and their family lives are not going to be the same. And their futures are going to be different, and their opportunities are going to be different. And I think that was inspired us every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. I was just reflecting on Seedstars and where we were. If you now you're saying you're expanding to new countries, and so you're going to want to find recruit people that can live by your culture. And so what are the values of Valentina?
What we live for, and I think the thing we constantly say to each other and our team is we want to leave the world better than we can imagine. So we want people to be idealists. We want people to dream. We want people to think we can make things way much better than what we think it's possible. And I think that's what we're going to look for, and just people that are creative and that care about the others.
So you are one of our heroes. Who is your hero?
Definitely Valentina is our hero. We've been reading a lot about it, but at a personal level, before knowing Valentina, I would have to say the Dalai Lama. It's definitely one of my heroes. I had the opportunity to visit Tibet. I was working with kids with disability there, and see what had happened and the way he had approached the whole situation, and how to such a complicated thing. He have managed to make it in something so beautiful.
Yeah.
And this message he's been spreading to the world as a personal, for me, gives me a lot of strength. I don't know, make me feel safer to be in this world knowing that he's here.
That's
so
nice. Someone completely in remote, with whom you've never had a physical connection, makes you feel safer. It's
definitely
nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been wonderful to hear your highs and lows, because there are lows to building such a business.
Oh.
And we will hear from you soon as you go through not only the Seedstars growth program, but continue the Adventure of Valentina program. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a great pleasure.
Thank you for listening to our hero's journey, and subscribe now for more stories on Seedstars podcast.